And the Minister of National Security, he did a pretty or relatively short press conference where I believe he took no questions, but he made a statement, somewhat rambling, basically trying to defend the government's position in this whole Brent Thomas situation, although it's interesting what he did not say, or rather the aspects of the case which has caught the public's attention that he did not address. For more, it's time to cue this.
As I have been making clear before this nation, time and time again within recent times, I know what my responsibilities are, and I carry them out to the best of our ability with the full support of the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago in this regard, in terms of providing resources and the other things that a minister has responsibility for. But recently, there was this matter with Mr. Brent Thomas as the first claimant, a matter on which the court pronounced. Lawyers for the state, who I might tell you have been directed by the police to conduct an appeal in that matter, and that is a matter for the lawyers and for the police. Mr. Thomas, as is within his right, issued through his attorneys challenges to what the police have done, seeking relief from the court in constitutional issues and otherwise. From the little information available to me, the police would have obtained warrants, and they would have gone to the home and offices of the claimant. They would have found things that, according to the police, that were prohibited items, namely automatic firearms and hand grenades, so-called. And on the basis of those, the police took the action that it took. It had nothing to do with me as minister, the Prime Minister, or the Cabinet. The court pronounced upon those claims by the claimant, and it made certain orders, including the fact that these items should be returned to the claimant, and that, of course, will be one of the bases of the appeal, as I have been told by the police, because if they are prohibited items, they ought not ordinarily to be in the hands of anyone, including firearm dealers that are licensed under Chapter 1601 of the police, of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, the Firearms Act. And to import explosives, which grenades are, you have to be licensed under 1602, which is the Explosives Act. The police, acting in accordance with an observation of both those laws, found on its own independent professional assessment that they could lay charges, and they did that. I have already long observed that right now we are in a fight for the soul of Trinidad and Tobago. And I do not say that lightly. I say that because I see every one of our state institutions under severe attack. Attacked by criminals who lobby and who influence people who hold high office in this country. And the criminals have friends everywhere in this country. They have them in the police service. They have them in the customs, in the immigration, in the defense force. They have them in the judiciary. They have them in the parliament. There are others who feel they have to benefit from this Brent Thomas thing. I've seen calls for all kinds of things in the newspapers. With the little facts available to me, members of the public, I know why you are hearing very loud voices. There are those who feel that they could capitalize on the judge's comments to their own advantage and benefit. That is all right. And I urge the police to continue doing its work in accordance with the mandate in front of it.
Let's just sum it up here. I'll just say this, Ketan. Minister of National Security, he gave some details on the basics of the case with regards to the offenses. And what he said about that part of it, I'm willing to believe that there's no grand conspiracy to go after the gun dealer, who does work for the government, by the way. He doesn't this is not some illegal arms dealer. This is somebody who apparently is a supplier to the government. But fine, okay. You know what? All the minister said was, it was a police matter, let the police order. I get that. But ultimately speaking, if his hope and his intention was to defend his and government's position or innocence with this press conference, it would have been better if he said nothing. Because not only does it seem as though he fails to understand, and he pointed this out. We heard it just now. You exclaimed, right? Criminals have friends all over the place, in customs, in the police, in parliament. He just said it. That is the environment that causes the public to not trust the system, to borrow a phrase, to be quick.
Who are Fitzgerald Hinds' friends?
Right? Hold on.
Sorry.
So not only that, but he spoke about the Brent Thomas case. He didn't speak about the most important part, which you brought up earlier. The fact that how was he taken into custody on foreign soil? And it seems as though that there isn't the correct paperwork for it. And it seems as though everybody wants to hide behind, well, it's an ongoing investigation, it's before the courts, we can't talk about it. But in a land where you yourself could admit that criminals have friends in all of the high places and all of the right places, or the wrong places, depending on how you see it, why are we going to just take it for the benefit of the doubt? Oh, it's before the courts, therefore we can't know anything. So we'll just trust and give you the benefit of the doubt and have faith in a system that saw police officers shoot their own fellow police officer and then lie to the commissioner about it. I'm going to have faith in the system. Ketan, floor is yours.
Why do we keep highlighting this man?
Because he's the Minister of National Security.
Such a shame. Anyway, greatest respects to the Minister of National Security. You understand. He should not have been the one holding the press conference in the first place. In fact, no member of parliament should have been holding the press conference. Or let me rephrase that.
I actually...
The only individual should have been the Attorney General, one, or the Commissioner of Police.
Yeah.
Those
Attorney General is technically a member of parliament, so okay,
right?
you correct yourself there.
So
yes.
those are the only two individuals as far as I'm concerned.
In fact, they would have been, to your point, the commissioner saying that this is not affected by parliament would be stronger than a member of parliament.
Precisely.
Government saying that
this is nothing, right? And that's my point. Fitzgerald Hinds, even if you wanted somebody from government, is not the best person to defend the government, right? Because up to now, he hasn't really spoken about the case. He's spoken about so many other things. It should have been the Commissioner of Police or the Attorney General. Furthermore, he made some serious allegations there about friends everywhere in the police service, in immigration, in the judiciary, in parliament. If you have that information, I hope that you forward that information to the police. Let them do the investigations, which might take years, and hopefully these individuals will be charged. Because if you're withholding that information, you're not helping the soul of Trinidad and Tobago. Thirdly, I still have a lot of questions over this case. On what grounds, on what authority? In other words, on whose guidance, whose advice, or whose direction were the three police officers, let me get the name, ASP Birch, Senior Superintendent Suzette Martin, and Corporal Joe Field, were actually allowed to fly in an RSS plane to Barbados to bring this individual, Brent Thomas, back to Trinidad on whose authority, right? Who contacted the Barbados Police Service?
That's the more important question
And
to me.
on what grounds or on what authority was the Barbados Police Service actually acting? Furthermore, it seems as though, because nobody has given clarification to this, that the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs were also not notified because there is the CARICOM, there's the extradition treaty. There's that extradition treaty which we seem to have bypassed, right? I think it's the CARICOM and Territories Extradition Treaty, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody correct me later on, right? Those were bypassed. Then also, there are certain agencies and authorities, again, I keep questioning, we need more information. I'm speaking based off what I know, that seems to not have been informed. Was the Commissioner of Police informed? Why hasn't she spoken about the conduct of her officers as yet? Was the Ministry of CARICOM and Foreign Affairs informed? That doesn't seem to be the case, because from what I understand, we've not spoken about the extradition treaty at all. Was the Attorney General informed? None of these things have come to light. And then we have the Minister of National Security addressing the public when he himself is saying it's a police matter. The Commissioner of Police should be the one to respond to the information being displayed in the public, or the Attorney General.
Unfortunately, the Minister of National Security seems to not understand what police matters means. Once you leave your border, it is no longer a police matter. There is no such thing as a police force in the world that has jurisdiction in another country's sovereign territory. The end. Otherwise, the Americans would have sent somebody to pick up Jack Warner, years ago. But he's fighting extradition, as you pointed out. So that and all actually makes maybe there's a long technical explanation, but we have to get that. Minister didn't give us that, and without any sort of reasonable explanation, what the minister just said, based off of basic principles of international treaty and international law and national sovereignty, this is not a police matter. Therefore, your confidence in your knowledge of these things, I have to now question it.
Well, actually, you have to understand, and a quick correction, it's the Commonwealth and Foreign Territories Act. I got the correct name there. If I am not mistaken, and I'm due to be corrected, doesn't the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service have an Interpol department? Right?
I think that was pointed out.
If that is the case as well, all of these questions.
No, but even Interpol is not so much of a police agency. Interpol doesn't have jurisdiction to go in any country or whatever and just act. It's not a police force per se.
That's why I'm asking, on what grounds or on whose authority or advice did the Barbados Royal Police Force act?
Did they act?
Right? And who are these? Well, they obviously would have had to, based on what you're saying.
I'm assuming that they did, otherwise it's an international incident.
And these three police officers, on whose authority did they act? Where did they receive the instructions from? They're not going to come out and speak. We know that. But on whose authority are they acting?
But the sad part is, this is too big of a situation. They cannot hide behind they were under orders, unless they're willing to say who gave them those orders. And it can't just be, well, I heard from so-and-so that so-and-so told so-and-so to tell me to go. My supervisor can just tell me, well, somebody from on high told me to tell you all to go and pick him up. It can't be so.
Can we be honest? I don't think they really have to come out and defend themselves publicly. Again, it's up to the Commissioner of Police. If she could respond to claims against her in relation to a Tea Party, right? She could clarify all these questions that we have as well.
It's just the only reason why I'm not going full tilt on blowing up is the fact that I've yet to see Barbados issue any statement condemning the situation. So I'm assuming that an international incident did not occur. But this is it was an extradition from a foreign territory. And if the court is basically saying, well, it wasn't conducted in the correct manner, one could forgive the rest of us for having a lot of questions still.
Is it even legally correct to say that it was an extradition?
Well, that's a good point. It might not even have been a legal extradition. It might have been an abduction.
Might have been an extraction.